At the crux of my practice, like the key thing I'm investigating is I'm trying to visualize what it's like to be in one place mentally and another place physically, and the fluctuation between those two states. My name is Katita Miller. I'm a painter, and we are in my Hunter MFA studio in Tribeca. A lot of my paintings are based on distant childhood memories. I'm also really interested in magical realism, so I've always been attracted to stories and movies where there's a sudden shift from, the mundane world to some fantastical sort of realm. I'm trying to kind of figure out how to visualize all of that in a still scene. I think my aesthetic taste is very maximal, so I'm very attracted to anything that's overly decorative, if it's covered in embroidery or if there's like a really complicated, funky wallpaper somewhere, I'm always immediately drawn to that. I grew up in New Mexico and then Texas. A lot of Mexican textiles and ceramics were around the house. So I feel like a lot of my influence comes from just growing up in that environment. I love theater, I love musicals, anything where there's just a big spectacle, I'm very influenced by. I am also a very anxious and obsessive person, so my mind is always racing, I'm always overthinking things, there's always a lot of mental kind of background noise. I'm trying to visualize the noise of thoughts and emotions, and sometimes that manifests itself in something that's not immediately recognizable within the paintings. I do start out with the paintings with a clear image in my mind, and then as the process goes along, it gets kind of muddied and becomes more abstract. In pretty much every painting, there are figures, but they can be hidden or obscured by patterns. Transparencies make them kind of hard to see at first glance, but that comes from thinking about a history of a human presence in a space, but not necessarily that person physically being there in the moment I'm trying to capture. I usually have 2 or 3 big paintings that I'm working on at a time, and I'm using this collaging method where I paint transparent paper with liquid watercolors and then cut it up with an X-Acto knife into the shapes I want and kind of piece together the composition that way. Normally my paintings start out with a really washy acrylic that I mix with pouring medium so that it kind of beads up. Then I go in with the paper and start kind of piecing together the general composition. And it goes back and forth between painting and collaging. And the transparency of the paper and of the paint kind of allows a window into the history of what was there in previous layers. I feel like I mainly choose memories that are pretty distant. That way I can sort of reconstruct them more freely rather than being tied down to trying to be accurate about it. I'm really interested in reconstructing those events and spaces that I have some distance from now. My parents recently got rid of this couch that we had in our house growing up. It was upholstered in Kalim Turkish woven rugs in this kind of diamond pattern. We took a lot of family photos sitting on that couch, and it's kind of in the background of a lot of my memories. It's sort of like the stage for any family photo taken for a span of probably 20 years, more or less. I wanted to make a painting almost to honor the couch, and also thinking about it as some sort of like a portal for memories. I'm not sure where the couch is now, but I was imagining that maybe somehow our family's presences were still there just because of all the photos that have been taken on it and how much time collectively we all spent sitting on it. Since my final semester of undergrad, I've been thinking about the relationship between the performing arts and theater, and film sort of falls into that camp, and painting. In theater, there's the proscenium, which is kind of the frame around the stage. So it's this window, this very clear boundary between the audience and the action that's happening on the stage. And sort of same thing with movies, where there's this clear rectangle and the fictional world is in there and you're here watching it. And I sort of think about painting in that same way, like how I can make it into this portal. I want it to be more of like an immersive kind of two-way interaction between the viewer and what's going on in the scene. One time someone told me that one of my paintings made them feel itchy. I think it was because of all the really minuscule detailed patterning. I really like that it was able to evoke that very physical bodily sensation, because that's something that I never really thought about a painting being able to do. I don't want to necessarily try to make people feel itchy, but it's kind of encouraging that it can provoke such a strong physical sensation. So I'm kind of open to whatever people get from them.